Who's your commander?
Good luck.
Equip.
Move to combat.
Resolves.
Now, before you attack
Does
me,
anyone have an answer?
well played.
Good game.
Hello everyone, DJ here. This is the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite archetypes. It's aggro artifacts. And this deck has been inspired by Dragon Shield's new release of their Batman sleeves. Thank you for sponsoring this video, Dragon Shield. We'll take a closer look at these sleeves a little bit later, but first I have to introduce you to our artifact commanders. We have Silas Renn and Akiri Lineslinger. Silas Renn, Seeker Adept, is 1 blue-black for a legendary artifact creature human. He's a 2/2 with Death Touch, and whenever Silas Renn, Seeker Adept, deals combat damage to a player, choose target artifact card in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. Next, Silas is partnered with Akiri Lineslinger. Red-white for a 0/3 legendary core soldier ally. Akiri Lineslinger has First Strike and Vigilance and gets +1/+0 for each artifact you control. Together, these two will let us explore all the artifact cards in every single color except for green. These two will really like artifacts, and they love to attack too. Smack someone with Silas Renn, and you get to cast artifacts from the graveyard. Akiri Lineslinger can get really big really fast. But what makes these two Batman and Robin? Silas Renn is a human tinkerer that loves his artifacts, and Batman is not a traditional superhero with all of these powers. He just has his wit and his clever devices. Akiri Lineslinger is the definition of an acrobat, and that makes me think of Robin as well. Both of these are pumped up by their toys, not because they're huge in their own right. It's a 2/2 and a 0/3, but if you have all the right equipment, these two can be super powerful. But of course, we're gonna have a whole slew of characters from Batman in this deck. I think the most iconic character from Batman is the Joker, so we have to wonder who is going to play the Joker. And that was a little bit tricky, but I think that I'm landed on Urza, Lord High Artificer, to represent this Joker. And I think the reason why is because Urza was not actually that bad of a person, but Yawgmoth got into his brain and made him crazy. And so the Joker is truly insane as well. So we have two characters sort of defined by their insanity. Next, if we're looking for a true mastermind of the Batman universe, we need to look at Ra's al Ghul. And in Magic, that has to be represented by Tezzeret. Constantly scheming, always dealing with artifacts, and plotting against our heroes. I'm going to have Talia represented by Brea Ethereum Shaper. Of course, we're going to have a slew of villains in this deck. For Catwoman, I'm going to go with Alila Artful Provocateur. She's definitely a provocative character. Look, people want Miri the Veil Cursed, sort of the literal cat legendary, but Alila really does go along with the flavor of Catwoman, I think, and goes along with this deck really well. Next, we're going to have Emery, Lurker of the Loch, and that's going to be Poison Ivy. Look, I even found art that has a lotus in it. That's pretty sweet. Going on, Scarecrow is going to be matched up with Brutaclad, Telcor Engineer. Just both of them are very scary, and Brutaclad can be gross scary in this deck. Marionette Master, there's literally a marionette villain in Batman, although I had to look that one up. Next, we have Clayface, represented by Duplicant. This deck is even filled with allies. Batgirl has got to be Hana Ship's Navigator. I love the matching color scheme here of that new art. And of course, Lucius Fox. I always see Lucius Fox as Morgan Freeman, giving Batman all of the best toys. And Psymaster Thopterus definitely fulfills that role. But I had a really hard time picking an Alfred, because Alfred is so mild-mannered, but so important to Batman. I had to go with Karn. Karn, although doesn't look like a butler, really is the pacifist that just happens to produce some amazing constructs that really beat down like crazy. And that's got to be Alfred. Of course, last but not least, we got to throw in a pair of dead parents. All right, let's talk about some more components of this deck. This deck really relies on attacking. Silas Renn triggers when it deals combat damage. Akiri Lineslinger smashes. And so equipment could go really well in this deck. You know, the most on-theme Batman equipment that we can find would be grappling hook and a batarang, the Razor Boomerang. By the way, Razor Boomerang, quite possibly the most atrocious art that I've ever seen on a Magic card. It's just horrible. But here's the thing. This deck is so full of amazing artifacts. I don't think that there's room for them. Grappling Hook is at least a tiny bit good, but 8 mana to get it going? Ugh, no way. Let's take a look at some really high impact equipment with Cranial Plating. We're going to be going so wide with tokens and have so many incidental artifacts on the battlefield. Cranial Plating is just going to attach wherever we need it and just smash people. Oh, it's going to be a huge threat in this game. And then Embercleave. Oh my gosh, we mentioned that Double Strike is going to be really good getting double triggers off of Silas Renn, but on Akiri Lineslinger, on Robin, it's just going to go smash, smash, trampling over. It's so good. I mean, even on Silas Renn has Death Touch, which, by the way, is the one downside, I guess, to the flavor of Silas Renn being Batman. Because Batman famously doesn't kill. But Silas Renn has Death... Do you know what, though? Silas Renn having Death Touch maybe is on flavor for Batman, because have you seen the way Batman punches villains? Yeah, some people died from Batman punches right there. There are definitely dead villains out there, and that's similar to Silas Renn. It's like, look, you know, I'm just a tutu. I just punch, and then some people end up dead. Okay, next, Embercleave is solid, but one thing that's really good is that we can attach these to any sort of little dinky creature that we have in this deck, and we're going to be creating a lot of them. I already mentioned cards like Brea and Pian Kiran Nalar and Psymaster Thopterist. You know, all of these are going to be creating little dudes. Along with it, we have Saheeli Sublime Artificer, Tezzeret Artifice Master, and Thopter Spy Network. We're going to end up with just a lot of incidental guys on the battlefield, and they're going to carry equipment really well and pump up Akiri really well, pump up our Cranial Plating really well. Yeah, it's amazing. Some other ways to weaponize a really wide spacing army is Brutaclad, to turn them all into bigger, more impressive artifacts. Masterful Replication is a really fun way to close out a game, because you just basically turn your army of servos into an army of Wormcoil Engines, or Battle Spheres, or anything. It's so fun. And then finally, we have a few Anthem effects like Steel Overseer, just slowly and methodically pump up your team so they become more relevant attackers. And you know, Silas Renn does let this deck really keep going after the aggression stops. You know, you can only swing with Akiri for so long. Silas Renn might not be able to get through with damage, but if we build in sort of a robust recursion engine, then we can keep going when we can't be as aggressive. So Emery, Lurker of the Loch, gets stuff back from the graveyard. Same thing with Duretti and Goblin Welder and Hannah Ship's Navigator and a lot of cards in this deck. Of course, we can just have some dinky artifacts that we can just churn over for value, like Baubles, Mishra's Bauble, Urza's Bauble. All of these we can get back for cheap in the early game and just let us draw more and more cards. Wayfarer's Bauble can help us ramp, although we don't have very many basics in this deck. And then finally, we might want to send stuff to the graveyard. Marionette Master can deal so much damage. I mean, you just sacrifice a few servos or throw them away in combat, and Marionette Master just goes drain you, drain you, drain you. Marionette Master also wears equipment really, really well. I mean, you could just imagine what a Cranial Plating on Marionette Master can do. I've done that before. That is fun. Mirrodin Besieged. If you get a bunch of artifacts in your graveyard, you might just win the game. And then finally, Arcbound Ravager. If things are going to the graveyard, you can actually build up your Ravager and keep some of that momentum on the battlefield. You can also dump these onto a random servo or a Thopter and just deal a ton of damage when your opponent just can't deal with the mass of creatures you put on the battlefield. And that's basically the way this deck plays. I have a version that doesn't run blue. I'm so excited to share the blue version with you because there's a lot of good cards in here. But honestly, you hit the ground running, you have a lot of cheap artifact ramp, and you have some pretty aggressive creatures. It's really hard to take everyone out of the game so quickly. People are gonna stabilize, but that's where the recursion comes in. That's where the engines that you've built with these artifacts and these planeswalkers start kicking in. And we have a lot of planeswalkers to be able to sort of stabilize us, and we have a lot of dinky artifacts to block, get in damage. Oh my gosh, this deck starts off aggressive and then pivots into something that's really resilient and sometimes even combos out your opponents for a really, really solid finish. I want to thank Dragon Shield so much for sponsoring this video. These Dragon Shield sleeves featuring Batman are just part of a series of Justice League sleeves. You might have seen Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Superman, and now Batman. Gotta be my favorite. I love Batman. These sleeves are made with the quality of Dragon Shield. I mean, they're the best and I really love them, and hopefully you like them too. There'll be links in the descriptions for you to pick up some. Thank you, Dragon Shield. If you think that you can build a better Batman deck, Dragon Shield is also running a competition. If you click on the link in the description and go to tappedout.net, you can enter a competition to build your own Batman deck and win fabulous prizes, Dragon Shield product, and $100 to cool stuff Inc. Speaking of which, the previous winners to this contest are right down in the video description. You should check and see if you've won and send me an email so I can give you your fabulous prizes. If you love Batman or not, I have to say this deck is really, really fun. I've played a version of it and it is so customizable. You can tweak cards and move them in and out, make it more aggressive, make it more combo-y. You can do what you want with the cards you have. It is so fun to have an artifact strategy. In fact, it's one of the most popular strategies according to EDH Rec. So please, build a cool artifact deck, take a look at this one, brainstorm some Batman themed decks. Doesn't have to be artifacts, it can be whatever you want, and hopefully you win some great prizes. Thanks again, Dragon Shield, for sponsoring this video. Thank you, Cool Stuff Inc., for sponsoring me all the time. And thank you, patrons. You are amazing. And thank you very much for watching. Talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.